Have you ever heard the echo of a ghost saw chopping wood where no one has been for decades? Have you ever felt that shiver down your spine when passing by an abandoned place, as if empty walls were whispering secrets that no one should hear? If you answered yes, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you answered no, well, get ready, because what you're about to discover will completely change the way you see Ontario's ghost towns. There's something profoundly unsettling about places where life has simply stopped. We're not talking about those villages that have become tourist attractions. No, we're talking about places where time has brutally frozen, where silent tragedies still echo among moss-covered ruins, where abandoned buildings seem to watch your every move with empty windows that have seen too much. These are places where the past categorically refuses to rest in peace. Ontario is full of these historical scars. Entire towns that once teemed with life, noisy sawmills, productive mines, bustling train stations, families building dreams and that suddenly cease to exist. But here's the part nobody tells you. These towns may have been abandoned by the living, but they were never truly empty. Stick with me until the end, because every story I'm going to share today has been verified, is real, and some are so disturbing they'll make you question whether you should even be watching this alone. In the first part of this series, I told stories of places like Balaclava and Depot Harbour, towns that literally disappeared from the map, but left behind something far more sinister than just ruined buildings. The messages you left were impressive, many recounting their own experiences, others sharing family stories about these haunted locations. And it was precisely because of your engagement that I decided to delve even deeper into this dark theme. Today, in part 2, we're going to delve into the stories of 7 more real ghost towns in Ontario. We're talking about towns with inexplicable sounds echoing through empty corridors, rusty machinery that should have been dead for decades but stubbornly continues to function on its own voices, whispering names in forgotten languages, silhouettes that appear and disappear among the trees at dusk. Have you ever experienced that? That moment when every hair on your body stands on end and you just know that you're not alone. So turn off the lights, turn up the volume, and come with me on this journey through the darker side of Ontario's history. But before we dive into these heart-pounding stories, I need to ask you something. If you've watched this far, it means this type of content resonates with you in some way. Maybe you're fascinated by abandoned places. Maybe you have your own unexplained experiences to share, or maybe you simply love a good mystery story. And you know what? It's exactly people like you who keep this channel alive. So, if this topic resonates with you, if you're feeling that chill down your spine that only a good ghost town story can evoke, leave a comment below. Have you ever visited an abandoned place? Ever felt that inexplicable presence in an empty building? I read absolutely all of them. Hey, if you're enjoying this content, give the video a like. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now's the perfect time. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications, because I regularly post about ghost towns, haunted places, and unexplained mysteries in Ontario and all over Canada. You won't want to miss part 3 of this series, or the other videos I'm preparing. This community is growing fast, and the stronger we are together, the deeper I can delve into these investigations. Now that's said, let's begin this journey through part 2 of the stories of Ontario's most disturbing ghost towns. And I'll warn you now, the first story is the one that will surprise you the most. City 7, Silver Islet, the island that defied nature. Let's start with a place that perfectly embodies human arrogance in the face of the forces of nature. Imagine an island so small in the middle of Lake Superior that it could barely fit a football field. Now imagine 19th century engineers looking at that piece of rock, battered by violent waves, and deciding, let's build one of the most profitable silver mines in the world, right here. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But that's exactly what happened on Silver Islet. In the 1870s and 1880s, this tiny island became the stage for an epic battle between human ambition and the relentless fury of Lake Superior. The silver discovered there was so abundant, so valuable, that investors were willing to defy the impossible. They built massive breakwaters to hold back the lake's icy waters, constantly pumped water to prevent the mine from flooding, and literally fought against nature every day to extract wealth from the depths of the earth. Engineers of the time called the project impossible. They said it wouldn't last a winter. But human greed knows no bounds. And for a time, it worked. Silver Islet prospered in ways no one could have imagined. Elegant Victorian buildings were erected, families moved in, an entire community sprang up on that piece of rock, defying the odds. The sound of pickaxes and steam pumps echoed day and night. Silver flowed. Money to ith was an operation that defied all the laws of logic and nature. But then came the hidden truth that all ambitious people eventually discover. Nature always exacts its price. Always. A coal shipment was delayed in the brutal winter of 1884. Without coal, the pumps stopped. Without the pumps, the water flooded in. And when Lake Superior finally got what it had always wanted from the start, it showed no mercy. The mine was swallowed. The dream froze to death under tons of icy water. Families fled. Buildings were abandoned. And Silver Islet became what nature always knew it would be, a graveyard. Today, the island is almost deserted. The surviving Victorian buildings stand there, silent witnesses to an arrogance that cost everything. But here is where the story takes an even more disturbing turn. Locals, and the few brave visitors who venture there at night, speak of something that defies any rational explanation. On stormy nights, when the lake churns with the same fury it always has, lights appear. They are not reflections. They are not boat headlights. They are lights that move deliberately, like lanterns dangling in someone's hands, the same lanterns that miners used when they descended into the dark and claustrophobic depths of the earth. And there's more. Metallic sounds echo from the submerged mine, the clinking of pickaxes against rock, the creaking of chains, the mechanical rhythm of pumps that should have been dead for over a century, as if, down there, beneath the dark, icy waters of Lake Superior, the work had never truly stopped, as if those men who dedicated their lives to extracting silver from that cursed rock were still there, trapped in an eternal shift that death could not end. It's the kind of place that makes you question everything. The impact of this story goes beyond superficial fear. It's about what happens when we push nature beyond its limits. It's about the real price of unbridled ambition. It's about souls that may have become trapped at the exact moment they realized they had lost. If Silver Islet gave you goosebumps, write in the comments. Nature always wins. I want to know if you feel the same energy I feel when telling these stories. City 6, Mowat, the city devoured by the Algonquin forest, but this journey through the forgotten places of Ontario is only just beginning. Because if Silver Islet showed us what happens when we defy nature, the next story reveals something even more disturbing. What happens when nature simply decides to erase our existence completely? There's a place in the heart of Algonquin Park where the forest holds a secret fauna. Trails that don't appear on official maps lead to something that shouldn't exist anymore, the ghostly remains of an entire town that was literally devoured by nature. Its name was Mowat, and in the 1890s it was a vibrant and thriving community. It had everything a small town needed: a bustling hotel where workers gathered after long shifts, shops selling everything from food to tools, a noisy sawmill that operated non-stop, and hundreds of residents who genuinely believed they were building a future there. The transformation of Mowat from a vibrant city to absolute silence happened so quickly that it's almost impossible to process. Around 1900, the timber simply ran out. The trees that fueled the local economy, that gave reason for the community's existence, were all cut down. And when the last truckload of timber left, something extraordinary happened. The people simply left. There was no dramatic exodus, no elaborate farewells. Families took the essentials and left, leaving practically everything behind. Houses with furniture inside, shops with merchandise on the shelves, toys scattered around the yards, as if everyone had gone for a walk and never returned. And then the forest did what forests do best. It reclaimed the territory that had always been its own. Trees grew through foundations, moss-covered walls, roots embraced and broke structures that once sheltered dreams and hopes. Mowat was swallowed, chewed, and digested by nature with almost cruel efficiency. Today, more than 120 years later, all that remains are foundations covered in vegetation and ghostly trails that snake among the trees like scars on the landscape. But here's where the story takes a turn that makes you question everything you know about reality. Hikers who venture onto these forgotten trails, and there aren't many, because the place has an energy that simply repels. People report experiences that defy any logical explanation. The distant whistle of a sawmill echoes among the trees. It's not a faint or imagined sound. It's clear, it's real. It's the same whistle that called the workers to their shift more than a century ago. And then there's the laughter The laughter of children playing. Can you imagine that? Being alone in the middle of a dense forest, walking over the remains of a dead city, and suddenly hearing the unmistakable sound of children laughing and playing as if it were an ordinary summer afternoon. But when you look, there's no one. There's never anyone. Just you, the trees, and those voices that come from nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Some visitors mention something even more disconcerting. The smell of food, cooking. It's not a vague fragrance. It's the unmistakable smell of baking bread, of stew simmering. That kind of home-cooked food that fills the house and makes you feel at home. But there, in the middle of the forest, where there haven't been houses for generations, where there are no stoves or fireplaces, that smell simply appears and disappears like an olfactory whisper from the past. The most unsettling stories come from those who dared to stay until nightfall. Victorian figures walking among the trees, women in long, elaborate dresses, typical of the 19th century, moving purposefully among the trunks. Men in hats and suspenders, carrying tools that gleam with a light that shouldn't exist. And then, just as they appear, they disappear into the mist that often covers Mowat at dusk, as if nature itself were trying to hide what shouldn't be seen. Urban explorers and amateur historians who investigated the ruins found something that adds an even more sinister layer to this entire narrative. Personal belongings intact, plates stacked as if awaiting the next meal, tools organized as if the owner were returning the following day. Children's toys, some still recognizable despite decades of exposure to the elements. It's as if life had stopped abruptly, frozen in time, preserved by the forest, like a macabre museum of interrupted existences. The hidden truth about Mowat is that the forest didn't just swallow the buildings, it swallowed the memories, the dreams, the everyday moments of hundreds of people who lived there. And somehow, these memories refuse to rot along with the wood and metal. They remain trapped between the trees, repeating themselves eternally, like an echo that never finds silence. If you feel that Mowat carries something deeper than just history, comment below. The forest reminds me. I want to know how many of you feel this presence of the past still alive in these forgotten places. City 5, Kiosk, the city that the government erased. There is a profound difference between a city that dies naturally and a city that is deliberately erased from existence. Mowat disappeared because its resources ran out, because its purpose was fulfilled. But what I am about to tell you is about a place that was literally removed from the map by government decree. And when you try to erase history by force, sometimes it refuses to obey. Kiosk was established in 1941 on the northern edge of Algonquin Park as a vibrant logging community. It wasn't a small, insignificant village. By 1971, Kiosk had 600 inhabitants and about 80 buildings. There was a school, a church, shops, family homes, all the infrastructure of a functioning community. Children were born there. Families built their lives there. It was real. It was alive. It was home. Then came 1973, and the sawmill that sustained everything burned down completely. It was the kind of devastating fire that changes the fate of entire places. Without the sawmill, there was no economy. Without an economy, there was no reason to continue. And it was at this vulnerable moment that the government made a decision that would change everything. In 1974, the order came. Everyone must leave by 1996. And as the houses became empty, they were systematically demolished. It wasn't natural abandonment. It was planned eradication. The transformation of Kiosk from a vibrant community into a cartographic ghost was brutal and methodical. Building by building, memory by memory, the city was dismantled and erased. Today, what physically remains is almost nothing. Only the forest ranger's hut stands as a solitary witness. The rest are occasional foundations emerging from the ground like the bones of a giant skeleton. The only signs that hundreds of people once lived, loved, worked, and dreamed there. But here's where the story becomes genuinely disturbing. The area where Kiosk once stood is now a campground. People go there to enjoy nature, completely unaware that they are pitching tents exactly where entire families once lived. And these people, these innocent campers, began reporting things that simply shouldn't be happening. Church bells ringing in the early morning. The sound is clear, distinct, impossible to ignore. The problem: the church was removed decades ago. There are no more physical bells to ring. The voices of children playing echo through the camp at odd hours. It's not during the day, when that would make sense. It's late at night, when everyone should already be asleep, and the lights, always the lights, deliberately moving among the trees exactly where historical records show the houses once stood. They aren't other campers' lanterns. They aren't reflections. They are lights that move purposefully, as if someone were walking among dwellings that haven't existed for generations. The most chilling account comes from those who wake up in the middle of the night with that unmistakable feeling of being watched. You know that feeling, don't you? That weight in the air, that primal certainty that you're not alone. And when they open their eyes in the darkness of the tent, they feel they don't see, but they sense a presence standing beside them, silent, motionless, just watching. And when they finally gather the courage to light a flashlight, there's no one there. There's never anyone there, but the feeling remains. The impact of this revelation is profound. Even Hollywood filmmakers have recognized Kiosk's dark energy. The horror film The Witch was filmed there, specifically because of its isolated and unsettling atmosphere. Film producers scouting locations for horror stories know how to recognize places where something isn't right, and Kiosk has that quality in abundance. The government may have wiped Kiosk off the map with demolitions and decrees, but it seems they forgot to tell the ghosts it was time to leave. Bureaucratic decisions have no power over memories that refuse to die. If this story of forced erasure impacted you in any way, write this down. Kiosk resists. Let's see how many of you feel that some places simply cannot be erased. City for El Dorado, the city of the phantom gold fever. Now let me tell you about a different kind of death. The death that comes not from nature, not from government decrees, but from pure greed and collective delusion. Because when impossible dreams collide with brutal reality, what remains is something far darker than ruins. Imagine the scene. August 15th, 1866. A quiet farm belonging to John Richardson. Marcus Powell is digging, probably doing some routine work, when suddenly he sees that unmistakable glint. Gold. The word spreads like wildfire, and within weeks, Ontario's first gold rush is officially underway. It's fascinating how a single discovery can completely transform the destiny of an entire region. In 1867, El Dorado was officially founded, and what followed was pure collective madness. 80 buildings sprang up practically overnight. Hotels, bars, guest houses, shops, all the infrastructure of a classic boomtown. Between 3,000 and 4,000 prospectors arrived, their eyes gleaming with hope and their pockets empty, all believing they would be the next to get rich. The mentality was simple. There's gold here, and it will change my life. But here's the hidden truth that nobody wanted to accept. Marcus Powell extracted only about 100 ounces of gold. 100 ounces. And after that, nothing. No additional gold was found. Imagine the impact of that revelation. Thousands of people left everything behind, traveled to a remote place, invested their last savings, built entire lives based on a promise that never materialized. El Dorado's transformation from a promising city to a ghost town happened as quickly as it emerged. In 2019, the population had dwindled to just 50 residents. 50 people living among the skeletons of dead dreams. The few remaining buildings are frozen in time, as if still waiting for the prospectors to return, for the party to begin again, for the gold to finally appear. And perhaps some prospectors never truly left. Visitors who venture into El Dorado recount experiences that defy explanation. The sound of pickaxes striking rocks echoes from the abandoned mines. It's not a distant or vague sound. It's clear, rhythmic, obsessively. Sound of men who can't stop searching even after the search has become futile. And then come the shouts, "I found gold." Male voices full of euphoria coming from mines that were sealed a century ago. It's the victory cry of someone who could never admit defeat. At night, silhouettes of bearded men appear, carrying lanterns, moving deliberately between the empty buildings, as if they were still searching, still digging, still trapped in that mentality of just one more hole, just one more day, just one more day, just one more try. An old abandoned hotel became particularly famous for being haunted by prospectors who died. They're not from accidents, but from broken hearts, shattered dreams, and utter misery. The most macabre detail of this story comes from behind the scenes of the gold rush. At one point, 100 miners stormed the Richardson mine, demanding to inspect it personally, convinced that they were being cheated, that the gold was there but was being hidden. The situation became so violent that 50 RCMP officers were needed to control the crowd. Imagine the anger, the despair, the collective greed of that moment. And some say that this energy never dissipated, that it still permeates the air of El Dorado like an invisible toxin. They came for gold and found only misery. And the saddest part, some never managed to accept that their dreams were over. They never managed to let go. And perhaps that's why they're still there, digging, searching, shouting victories that never happened. If you feel that El Dorado carries the weight of collective illusion, comment below. The dreams got trapped. I want to know how many of you perceive this energy of eternal obsession. City 3, Desaulniers, the silent village of the railway. What happens when an entire community is built on faith and cultural identity, but that identity is never truly accepted or validated? That is the grim story of Desaulniers, and it carries layers of sorrow that go far beyond physical abandonment. In 1895, Father A.L. Desaulniers had a clear vision to create a thriving francophone community in Gibson Township. It was more than just founding a village. It was about preserving language, culture, tradition, creating a piece of home for French Canadians in territory that did always welcome them with open arms. For years, the community grew slowly but with determination. Then, in 1913, the Canadian Northern Railroad arrived and everything changed. Suddenly, Desaulniers had an economic purpose in addition to a cultural one. The transformation was impressive. A guest house for travelers, shops selling everything, a cheese factory that produced for the entire region, a school where children learned in French, complete railway facilities, and of course, a church, the spiritual heart of the community. Desaulniers was alive, vibrant, full of promise. Voices in French filled the streets. Hymns were sung on Sundays. The train whistle marked the rhythm of daily life. But here, the hidden truth that tainted everything from the start. The church that was supposed to be the sacred symbol of the community was never officially recognized. The bishop at the time, Monsignor Scollard, was of Irish origin and had a well-documented problem with French Canadians. When the church was built in 1915 with the sweat and faith of the residents, he simply refused to consecrate it. Imagine the emotional impact of that rejection. You build a sacred place with your own hands, pour your hopes and prayers into those walls, and the religious authority says, "It's not good enough. You are not good enough." It took until 1916 for him to finally relent and consecrate the church, but the damage was done. This rejection left a wound that never fully healed, and perhaps it left something else, something that refused to leave, even when everything else crumbled. The post office closed in 1960, and that was the beginning of the end. Gradually, the buildings were demolished, the families moved away, the railway was decommissioned. Today, Desaulniers is practically unrecognizable. The main street that once teemed with life now looks like just another forgotten country road. The guest house is still there, but it's worn down, melancholy, like a silent witness observing its own irrelevance. But behind the scenes, a different story unfolds. Residents of nearby areas report phenomena that simply shouldn't happen. The distant whistle of trains that haven't passed through for decades echoes through the night. It's always the same time, always the same sound, as if the ghost train still maintains its original schedule. Church bells ring at strange moments, calling the faithful to a mass that will never happen again. And the voices, always the voices in French, singing hymns fervently, keeping alive a faith that was rejected but never abandoned. At night, lights move inside the abandoned guest house. They are not explorers, lanterns, or reflections of passing cars. They are lights that move from room to room, as if guests were still preparing to sleep, as if travelers were still waiting for the morning train that will never come. The railroad was physically erected decades ago, but ghost trains still stop at the station. Bureaucratic decisions have no power over memories that have been rejected but refuse to disappear. If you feel that Desaulniers carries the weight of eternal rejection, write this down. They're still waiting. I want to know how many people perceive this deep sadness that some places never manage to release. City 2, Milberta, the village devoured by fire. There is something particularly cruel about death by fire. It is not like gradual abandonment or planned demolition. Fire is violent, immediate, absolute. It leaves no time for farewells or organized rescues. And when an entire community is consumed by flames, the trauma is etched into the very air in such a way that no amount of time seems capable of erasing it. The first settlers arrived in Milberta in 1897, facing conditions that would challenge anyone. 7 months of merciless snow, only 2 months of summer, and even those 2 months were hellish, with 3 months of black flies and mosquitoes making outdoor life virtually unbearable. But these people had that pioneering mentality that simply refused to give up. Samuel Hogg named the community by combining Mill from Mill with Berta in honor of his wife Alberta. It was a romantic gesture amidst the brutality of frontier life to build something durable and name it in honor of love. And for 25 years, Milberta endured. Families adapted to the extreme climate, built their lives in the church that became the center of the community, created routines and traditions. There was a rough beauty in that existence. They were building something they believed would be permanent. Then came 1922 and the Great Fire. We're not talking about an ordinary fire. It was a massive conflagration that swept through the entire region, devouring everything in its path with a fury that seemed almost intentional. Milberta was completely devastated. The transformation from a functioning community to ashes happened in a matter of hours. Imagine the terror, the despair, the impossible decisions about what to try to save, who to try to save. Today, only the church remains as a solitary sentinel over what used to be a vibrant community. And even it is at risk of demolition, the last physical witness about to be erased as well. But physically erasing a place doesn't eliminate what happened there. It doesn't erase the trauma that was absorbed by the earth. Visitors to the area report phenomena so specific that it's impossible to dismiss them as imagination. Orange flames dancing on the horizon on perfectly calm nights, with no real fire for miles. These aren't vague or ambiguous lights. They are distinct flames, dancing and crackling exactly as real fire would. And then come the screams, desperate cries of people pleading for help, voices filled with utter panic echoing through decades as if time hadn't passed. The most physical and inexplicable impact is the heat. Visitors feel waves of suffocating heat even on cold winter days. It's a heat that comes from within the earth, with no identifiable source, that makes you sweat and gasp as if you were literally surrounded by fire. Some describe seeing figures running among the trees, silhouettes of entire families in frantic motion, trying to escape flames that consumed everything more than a century ago. Women carrying children, men shouting warnings, all eternally trapped in those terrifying last moments. Kearns Cemetery to the south offers panoramic views of the area, and you'd think it would be a tranquil place for reflection. But visitors consistently report a disturbing feeling of being watched from the surrounding trees. It's not casual paranoia, it's that visceral certainty that unseen eyes are fixed on you, studying, searching, as if restless souls were still desperately searching for loved ones lost in the chaos of the fire and never found. The fire may have wiped Milberta off the map a century ago, but the heat of that tragedy, the trauma of those final moments, still burns with an intensity that defies any logical explanation. If you feel that the fire left more than just ashes behind, comment below. The flames never went out. I want to know how many can feel that eternal warmth that some places carry. City 1, Cobalt, the trail of the haunted mines, and we arrive at the most haunted place of all, where wealth and death are so deeply intertwined that it's impossible to separate one from the other. Cobalt is not just a ghost town. It's a labyrinth of tunnels where men died seeking fortune and where, apparently, some never stopped searching. The discovery of silver in 1903 during railroad construction was one of those moments that changed the destiny of entire regions. By 1908, Cobalt was considered the world's largest silver producer. Let that settle for a moment. The whole world looked to this piece of land in Ontario as the ultimate source of mineral wealth. The population exploded to 10,000 people in 1909, with over 100 mines operating simultaneously. It was a money-making machine fueled by ambition, sweat, and blood. But Cobalt's journey has been marked by tragedy from the start. 2 devastating fires, the first in 1909 destroying half the city, the second in 1977 consuming 140 buildings. It acts as if the place itself is being repeatedly punished for extracting wealth from the depths of the earth. Cobalt-esque transformation from the world's silver capital to a partially abandoned city has been accompanied by constant loss. Today, there is the Heritage Silver Trail, a self-guided tour through the abandoned mine sites that allows visitors to literally walk behind the scenes of history. And the most iconic and disturbing symbol of this trail is the right-of-way headframe, which rises against the sky like a gigantic tombstone marking a mass grave, because that's exactly what it is. The mine plunged 164 meters straight into solid rock, and tragically, 27 men died there in the suffocating darkness. 12 of them were never recovered. Their bodies are still down there, eternally trapped in the depths that promised wealth but delivered only death. And here's where the hidden truth becomes impossible to ignore. Maintenance workers who need to enter the still accessible areas of the mines report experiences that make them question their sanity. Male voices whispering in tunnels that should be completely empty. These aren't echoes or acoustic tricks. They are distinct conversations in low tones, like men planning their next work shift. Flashlights that turn on by themselves, illuminating dark corridors with no power source. And most terrifying, the physical sensation of invisible hands pushing them towards deep shafts, as if something down there wanted company. Don LaRocque, a former tour guide, recalls an experience at the headframe that permanently marked him before the site was closed to the public. He never fully detailed what he saw or felt, but the impact was severe enough that he never wanted to return. But the haunting of Cobalt isn't limited to the mines. The Bunker Military Museum, housed in the former Fraser Hotel from 1910, has been the site of strange phenomena since 2012. Their SA, parade ground with 65 mannequins of soldiers in military formation, and repeatedly, visitors and staff swear they've seen the mannequins moving, heads turning, arms changing position, eyes following people around the room. Ghost tours are held there in the fall, and the revelations that emerge from these experiences are consistently disturbing. The mentality that drove men to descend 164 meters into the darkness every day, risking everything for silver, was one of almost supernatural determination. And perhaps some never managed to let that determination die, even when their bodies ceased to function. They mined the silver and built fortunes, but they left their souls behind in the depths. And in Cobalt, the dead apparently still work, still search, still hope that the next blow of their pickaxe will reveal the vein that will make it all worthwhile. If you feel that Cobalt carries the weight of souls eternally trapped at work, write this down. The shift never ends. This story touches on something deep, and I want to know if you feel it too. In the end, these 7 ghost towns in Ontario make one thing clear: the past doesn't disappear. It just stays quiet enough to watch us. And if you made it all the way here with me, you've already felt that. Drop a comment with the phrase, "I made it to the end," just so I know you walked through the dark with me. If stories like this make you see Canada in a completely different way, consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me keep bringing these forgotten places that hold more mysteries than they show. And leave a like too, because it tells me this kind of exploration is worth continuing. And hey, if you want to stay in this same atmosphere, there's a video right here that fits perfectly with what we uncovered today. Click on it and come with me. The next story is already waiting for you.